Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. Today we're going to talk about when to attach a camera to your helmet versus when to attach a camera to your chest, why to do it, and some of the settings that I like to do to really get those finishing touches on a video. So let's get into it. The chest mount is my go-to when I want to highlight my personal riding, when I'm not filming anyone else, when I want to show what I'm riding. If I'm riding alone in the city streets and I want to show the traffic and the streets that I'm flowing through, or if I'm riding mountain bikes or gravel bikes and I want to show how beautiful the scenery is and how rugged and intense the trails can be at times, the chesty is the way to do it. Now, it also provides a nice foreground element and gives the viewer a sense of speed. It's also very stable from the chest and shows a lower point of view to really feel like you're on the bike yourself. On the other hand, the helmet mount offers a totally different perspective. The head is the most stable place to film from. Your head is a built-in gimbal and stabilizer. Your body does everything it can to keep your head stable while you're riding a bike. The disadvantage to filming from your helmet when you're riding alone is there is no foreground element. It feels like it's just a camera floating in space. So if you're filming by yourself, it's pretty boring. You can't see any kind of foreground elements. All you have is a drone-like camera flying through roads and through trails. This is most ideal when you're filming someone else. Now you have a foreground element, the other rider you're filming, and this can be on city streets or on trails. Riding behind somebody and following their line, this is my absolute go-to way to share someone else's ride. This is the way to do it from the helmet. Before I get on my bike, I like to ask myself a few questions. The first question is, what am I riding and am I filming with someone else? If I'm filming with someone else, then I'm probably going to bring my helmet mount. If I'm filming on trails, filming alone, most likely I'm going to film with the chesty. It all depends on what type of riding you want to highlight. The next question I like to ask myself is, what time of day is it? This will give you the right idea of what white balance to set your camera to and how to set your exposure. If it's early morning and the sun is rising, the sun's only going to get brighter. If you're shooting in the late afternoon to evening, the sun's going to start going down and the sky's going to get darker. A few other notes that I like to add is, just because you're filming from your helmet or you're filming from your chest doesn't mean your camera has to stay there. Don't be afraid to take the camera off the chesty and hold it in your hands, or your helmet and hold it in your hands. Sometimes I take my helmet off my head while I'm riding and I bring the camera down low and I get different angles that I normally wouldn't get when it's on my helmet, just to add a little bit of extra flavor, maybe for an intro, maybe for a little cutaway here and there to capture the scene. This camera comes off really easily. Today I'm using the DJI. This is the Pocket 3. This has a gimbal built into it. All of these questions that I am asking you to ask yourself before you go film, these are valid for any camera. It doesn't even have to be an action camera. Now, something I like to do with my cycling videos is I typically love to have motion blur. It looks more natural. It has a better sense of speed. It looks like how it looks when I'm riding my bike. Things aren't always sharp and in focus. And when you shoot with a GoPro or any action camera, the way that the in-camera stabilization works is it really needs a high shutter speed to keep everything really sharp. That way the in-camera stabilization can find edges and stabilize the footage. Now that's why a lot of action cameras don't work great at night, because there's not a lot of light, and when you're shooting at night, the camera has to lower that shutter speed and increase that ISO, and things start to get a little wishy-washy and blurry, and that in-camera stabilization doesn't work. So some of the things I do to work with action cameras is I put a GoPro. If I was shooting with a GoPro, I would put it on a gimbal, and the gimbal would provide me with the stabilization that I need, and then I would put ND filters on that GoPro to block out the light so I can adjust my shutter speed to exactly 2 times the frame rate. So if you're shooting at 30 frames a second, you turn that shutter speed to a 60th. If you're shooting at 24 frames a second, which I like to shoot at, you shoot around 50 frames a second. Now when I'm shooting at night, I don't need an ND because there's not a lot of light. I only use the NDs and the gimbal when there's a lot of sun to help me cut down the light so I can use the desired settings that I need. Now the Pocket 3 has a gimbal built in. So this is 2 devices in one, plus this camera has a 1-inch sensor. So this camera has excellent video quality at night without an ND, and then during the day with an ND, it cuts the light out, and the gimbal's built in, so it's ready to go to get beautiful, natural-looking footage from your helmet or your chest. Now, if you don't have a gimbal or NDs, it's okay. The in-camera stabilization works really well. In fact, when I'm riding mountain bikes, bigger mountain bikes, I typically don't use motion blur because when you're riding mountain bikes, the lighting scenarios change a lot, and putting an ND on the camera really hinders the image when you go into the trees and it gets really dark. There's a lot of exposure changes when you're riding, and I'd rather just ride with the in-camera stabilization, so you can just turn on the camera and put it on your chest or your helmet or your chin and get that footage you're looking for. Now, one of the final things that people never talk about when shooting with action cameras, or any cameras for that matter, is audio. Now, audio, when I watch a video, audio is 50% of the experience. If you're only going to shoot video with an action camera and not have clean audio, you're losing 50% of that experience and that documentation of your ride or the person you're filming's ride. It is very important to me to record really clean audio.
Woo! That's a good one. Dang.
I stuck it up there for a second.
Yeah.
The way that I do this is I usually put a microphone on the rider that I'm filming, or I put a microphone on myself if I'm filming with myself. And there are many mics to choose from. In fact, DJI has really stepped it up lately, and they have their DJI Mic 2 that connects wirelessly to the Osmo Action 4 and the Pocket 3. Connects wirelessly and syncs the audio straight to the camera. And it's a beautiful, easy to use system that I highly recommend you guys to jump off of the GoPro bandwagon and get on over to a camera that syncs the audio perfectly for you without any extra steps in post-production. However, if you do use a GoPro, I still use a GoPro all the time. You need to do a couple things to make sure that audio is synced up. So if you have an audio recorder like the Rode Mic 2 or any of the Rode mics, what I do is I start the record on the person, I turn on the camera, and I have them clap their hands 3 times. And what that does is, on the audio levels on the GoPro and the audio levels on that audio file from the DJI or the Rode mic, you can find that 3 little spike of audio in the audio waves, and you can sync them up to the GoPro. That's one extra step you have to do in editing. And so that's why I'm saying the DJI stuff is much better, because it's automatically syncing with the camera wirelessly. You don't have to do that extra step in editing. So don't just take my advice on this. I would push it a step further. The way that I got to where I'm at with the videos that I make is I have experimented a lot. I've experimented with cameras on my bike, cameras on my helmet, cameras on my chest, cameras on the back of the bike, the front of the bike, and this is just the path that I'm on. I would tell you to experiment with those camera angles and put them in places that I haven't mentioned, because you might find an angle that works really well for what you're trying to capture. So that's it for today's video. This is just a little advice to you, a little thank you for watching the videos over the years. Hopefully this helps you when making cycling videos. If this helps you, let me know down below. If you have any questions, let me know, and we'll see you on the next one.
So we bring to a close the story of rigid control through the unceasing research and the highest quality.